Well, I'm very pleased to be inviting my first guest onto the health show this morning, Jack Roskell, who's a very active member of the Motor Neurone Disease Society in the area. And that's a condition that I know very little about. So welcome to CandoFM, Jack.
Hello, lovely to be here.
And you're super well today?
Well enough.
Well, yeah, I guess the pressure of being on CandoFM is immense.
Oh, it is. It's a heavy weight on my shoulders.
But you're as close an expert as I could possibly find to talk to me about the motor neurone disease, because I know absolutely minute detail of it. So what is MND?
Right. Well, I'll start this by saying, first of all, I'm a volunteer. So I wouldn't claim to be an expert, but I've been involved in the association now actively for about 4 years and a bit longer before that. So I've access to lots of information from people who do know what MND is.
So you are my oracle of all knowledge now.
Well, yeah. It's a rapidly progressing disease that affects the brain and the spinal cord and is fatal. It basically attacks the nerves that control movement so that muscles no longer work. So basically, you've got things like it'll affect swallowing, breathing, walking, talking. Doesn't normally affect sight, sound, feelings. So you can get to the situation where people are effectively trapped in a failing body, but mentally, they're fully aware of what's going on. A few people can develop something called frontotemporal dementia, which is basically a form of dementia. Only about 15% suffer from frontotemporal dementia. Maybe about half might have some changes in behavior, but these are usually very, very mild. But basically, certainly from my experience and people I've met with MND, the vast majority are fully aware of what's going on around them, but just lose the ability often to communicate.
So this is like an entrapment in your body and unable to use the body to express back either verbally or through gesture what's going on within.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So the other thing which I think probably surprises a lot of people is how rapidly it can progress. So it can kill a third of people within a year of diagnosis.
Wow.
Others, and you say probably about, I think it's a little more than half within 2 years, but the progression is very variable. And some people will live an awful lot longer. So I've actually know personally of somebody who's been going 20 years.
Crumbs.
So, you can't, there isn't but I think that often surprises people as to how quick it can act.
So the course of this condition will vary from person to person.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But
yeah.
But sadly, the outcome is the same.
The outcome's the same. It's usually fairly rapidly, but probably not survive 2 years from diagnosis. They might have experienced symptoms before diagnosis, but from diagnosis, that's the time.
So what kind of treatment options are there for a condition like this?
Well, the treatment options are very, very limited indeed. There's only one drug currently approved, called riluzole, and that's, you would say, marginally effective. Everything else is palliative care. So as things fail, like breathing, you may need ventilation for breathing support. Normally use non-invasive ventilation, just basically pushing air through the body. And that helps. That can prolong life, but it can also make increased quality of life because you have a little bit more energy to do things because you're getting the air in. Doesn't necessarily preclude feeding, eating through the mouth, but it can, because swallowing can become really difficult. It can be difficult to get the amount of calories you need in trying to swallow. So you can have the tube fitted, and if you like the taste of something, you can still put that in your mouth. So that's the sort of probably the best summary of it.
So a lot of the nourishment to keep somebody alive is having to be given via a tube into the stomach, although there is the ability still to eat some things and to taste some things through the mouth.
But that's an option. Some people do not want to have that. That's their option. Same as the breathing. Some prefer not to take it. So it's an option. But I think another thing I would like to stress is the difficulty of diagnosis, because the number of symptoms that you can have, it could be your first symptom could be just a bit difficulty walking. It'd be different for different people. And while there's only one symptom, it's very difficult for a GP to diagnose. They'll probably go for the simple option rather than because this is a relatively rare condition. Affects about 5,000 people in UK at any time. So they'll probably go for a simple option. And I've personal experience of that because my wife was probably from the first visit to a GP with nothing particularly consequential to being diagnosed was probably something of the order of 16 months. But there is no diagnostic test.
Okay.
You can't just do one test. So they have to eliminate other things.
So there's a lot of symptomatic treatment before they get down to involving an expert who can pin it down to motor neurone disease.
That's often the case. You often don't see the neurologist for quite some time because it depends on your GP sending you to the right people.
Okay, so it's a really difficult condition to recognize and to live with and to support with. I want to talk a little bit more about that in just a short while, but I'm just going to take a break to give yourself a chance for a refreshment and to play a little bit of music for our listeners. And then we'll come back and talk about the impact that it's had on you as a family member and talk a bit more from there. Okay, so thanks, Jack. I'll talk to you again in a moment. Very, very pleased to say that Jack Roskell is still with me as part of one of the motor neurone disease societies in our local area. Earlier on, we were talking about what the condition is, how it presents itself, how people can endure its progress, and some of the very limited treatment options are available now. So welcome back, Jack.
Lovely to be here.
I'm glad you haven't run away. I see you've changed rooms, but that's fine.
Yeah, well, let's hope it helps our communications better.
Yeah, we've got some gremlins in the line.
Losing each other, I'm afraid.
Never mind. I just blame the weather.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned.
It could be. You never know.
You mentioned earlier on that you've got personal experience of a family member having suffered with this condition.
Yeah.
Please describe to me the impact that has on the family.
Well, I obviously can describe it from my experience, but it will be variable depending on others' experience. I was in early 2012, but prior to that, we already suspected what it was because the condition had developed that much. And through that time, you've then got to adjust to rapidly changing things where you've got to try and plan ahead what you need to do in order to facilitate quality of life. Because, within relatively short space, it can be just months, you could go from being able to walk upstairs to not being able to walk upstairs, being able to take a shower to not be able to get in the shower on your own. So basically, there can be lots of things to deal with like that you've got to try and find a way, which will be peculiar probably to each house and to each family, what you can do.
This is adjusting on a day-by-day basis to the way the condition has progressed.
It gets like that because, and the problems you can have, particularly for my case, where the diagnosis was quite a long way down the line, is you were often playing catch up. You were often trying to adjust to a situation that had already occurred rather than trying to anticipate the situation. This
is a practical response to everything and finding practical solutions within the home and in your everyday life to sustain your activity levels for the person and to have a continued relationship with them.
Yes, it's saying, and one of the biggest issues for lots of people, you might think the worst might be getting upstairs and all this. I was fortunate. I had just retired. I had a lump sort of stair lift in. I could afford to put a wet room in. The trouble is, for some of these are means tested anyway when you're talking that amount of money, so I wouldn't have got one. But even if I hadn't been, the speed of progression would have meant that it would have taken too long to apply and then get the money back again. So, yes, it's obviously extremely disrupting on everything. And it's just each day is a new challenge.
Tell me about the emotional impact it has on you as a partner for somebody who's suffering with motor neurone disease.
It's a strange one, actually. I think the worst impact was probably before diagnosis, when you knew something was wrong, you didn't know what it was. And it was almost like when we got the diagnosis, it's then you have the outpouring of emotion, the tears, everything else comes out, or it did, to think, well, what can we do? You have, you're in that situation. We can't, I'd like to throw my pack of cards away and have somebody deal me a new set, but I can't do that. And then, you try and find ways. How easy it is will depend from individual to individual. It won't necessarily be, the same situation as me. Some people can't make improvements to the house. To be honest, it's quite surprising. I would say we got very, very close again, because we'd always been close. I think we're married for damn near 40 years. But when you're spending 24 hours a day, which is what effectively you are, it's difficult to say, because you're almost like, for that moment, you say your bit of life has to go on hold.
Which cannot be easy.
But the needs of your partner.
So where did you get support from?
Well, there's the local MND Association. We had what's called an association visitor, who was a member of the local group. And they basically, they'll provide wherever you want. They'll just come and see you if you want, or go over the phone, wherever. Just contact. And if you have any queries, they will try and sort it for you. So in the early days, it's when you're trying to source help, you want certain things, but you're never sure who you get them from. And often the visitor can do that, or they can provide other support. Basically just want somebody to have a chat.
So if somebody has a member of their family or a friend who's just been diagnosed with MND, how would they contact the local support group?
Yeah. Well, I can give you somewhere I have my number. I'm basically the local contact, so it'd be me you contact. I've got it somewhere. Being a mobile number, I never remember it. Right. It's 078, I can hardly see it in this light, 078 354
078 352 354 241.
It's 078 3542
41064.
There's also, you can get me email. That's Jack Roskell, MNDA @gmail.com.
Now, in terms of your early experiences and getting in touch with the MND Association, what support did they offer to you as a person?
I think I'd say the EV is the main support. You have to say as well, you're getting support, that you'll have one who looks after your area. And a lot of the support you then get is linked to the various services and accessing them. So a lot of it is really about pointing you to who to access. Our area is covered by specialist nurses who are based in Preston. They actually cover it, but they used to do clinics up here, and when you get ill enough, they will come and visit you if you can't go to a clinic. So there's lots of things. There's a lot of different things that can help. The MND Association provides a lot of the information. So I did have some wonderful booklets, and I can give you another source, which is now online for that. And that provides an immense amount of information on all aspects, because obviously my experience will be one person's experience of dealing with MND. Other people's problems will be different from mine.
So the MND Association for you, if I understand this correctly, so the MND Association for you, if I've understood it correctly, was providing you with lots of information about what was out there, signposting you to where the experts were to answer your questions where they couldn't answer them, and putting you in touch with information that you could take away and read at your leisure to get a bigger understanding of the condition and what was going on. So have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, that much, but there's also grants that the association can give to help people. So it's not just that. I mean, I used one. So basically, the local association gave me, paid me some more. So there's basically a grant so that I could stay overnight or several nights in a hotel when my wife was in Preston Hospital, because communication difficulties were such, she wanted me to be there to act effectively as her interpreter, because obviously when you live with somebody all the time and they're not communicating well, you get to know, little things that
that's the joy of a loving relationship. You pick up all these little innuendos that somebody says, or little gestures they make, you recognize as a symbol for what they truly want to be getting across to you. You can't get that in many relationships unless you're being closely associated with somebody, like in a marriage.
As I say, there's lots of other things the association can do. I mean, I was in the fortunate position of not needing them, putting in renting a stair lift temporarily while the house has been modified. And little things like that you can do. Help somebody with a wet room. Couldn't pay for the whole lot, but help them with it. So there's lots and lots of little, even other lovely things like got somebody a subscription to Sky Sports News, Sky Sports, because he was an avid football state where he couldn't move anything, but he could still see.
Yeah.
So that was improving the quality of life. So there's lots of things that we can do things like that just to improve somebody's quality of life.
So these grants can be very practical assistance to the family in helping that person live their life as fully as they can, despite the limited movement and muscle activity that they still have control over.
Yeah, that's it. That's precisely right. That's as well. And there's a local man whose young daughter was we paid for to swim with dolphins.
Wow, lovely.
With a family, so that's a lovely memory that she will have for the rest of her life, and that it's these little things that often the local association does, which is just the things that make life more pleasant and more bearable.
So tailored very much to the individual situation, the individual needs, and the practical improvement of their life for however long the condition allows them to live it. Yeah,
that's it. You do your best. Obviously, there's a limit in what we can provide financially, and there's something which is statutory requirements, and the council should fund, your local authority should fund some things. But that's obviously, their cash is limited as well, and it's for bigger things, it's means tested. So
getting funds into the MND is a massively important thing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we over the years have done lots of different fundraisers. This is an area where my colleague Angie is probably a lot more expert than me, but we've had raised funds through the Keswick to Barrow Walk now for I think it's about 17 years, long before I was involved, and that's been a very useful. A regular income, effectively. So we're doing it again this year. There'll be 4 teams entering. So, that's one effort, but we get lots of other wonderful things that come in, little things. I think St. Bernard's School have done something for us recently. There's others, Ascot line dancers, and you get all sorts of little local groups will fund.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I'm going to be talking to Dan Hayes I'm going to be talking with Dan Hayes in a little while about a couple of fundraising things that he's got on the go. That will.
He does lots of wonderful stuff.
I'm hoping he'll be able to give me a lot more information on those initiatives that will come into fulfillment to the middle of October. Which we've got our fingers crossed are going to raise a lot of money for the local MND Association. Excellent.
There's one more group that I must mention. It's ABC Boxing, who during the lockdown raised about £11,000 for us. That was motivated by seeing Rob Burrows.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's good is the fundraising is not just about the funds we get, it's about raising the profile.
Yeah, it's the awareness of this condition that is so debilitating.
And then the other things become easier. You get help easier, you get all sorts easier.
Yeah. Now, the funds that you require for doing some of these grants is huge. I mean, you're not talking small, 10 bob here and 10 pence there.
No, you're into we're the limits of what we can give, but I think any one family can access, they won't necessarily get it, but they can access up £3,000 a year.
Wow.
For one family.
That's a huge amount of money in terms of helping up the practical life of somebody with the MND.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Yes. Well, keep it coming.
Well, as I say, we're going to be talking with Dan in a little while, and I know that he's got some very, very ambitious projects on the go, but he's going to be optimistic because I got my fingers crossed that he's going to pull them all off. And we want the people of Furness and beyond to get involved and support these initiatives where whoever's raising the funds, whatever the initiative is. If you know somebody doing the Keswick to Barrow as part of one of the Motor Neurone Disease Society teams, then get on their sponsorship form, get your name on there, give them your support, and do everything you can to help Jack and the other members of the Motor Neurone Disease Association in the area to do everything possible to help the families and those who are suffering from motor neuron disease in our area. Jack, it's been an absolute privilege to talk to you today. I'm hoping that your life has adjusted since you lost your partner, and I'm hoping that you've got a long and enjoyable life ahead of you.
Thank you very much.